Why was Singapore kicked out of Malaysia?
This is a very interesting question to learn about because it's quite bizarre when you look on the map. You got Malaysia, that's my diagram of Malaysia, and then just in between there's a little Singapore there. So why?
Why? Why? Why?
Why?
It would have been really interesting if it was part of Malaysia. Like, I wonder how different Singapore would be today if it was part of Malaysia. Because, I mean, Malaysia has Kuala, which is like a really modern, cool city as well. So, how different would they actually be?
Yeah, I wonder how developed Singapore would be because obviously Singapore would be a huge city in Malaysia, but not being its own country with its own like policies and stuff could have changed how much it was developed.
Yeah, so much could have
Alternate
changed.
history?
Let's make our own. This Chai Geo is going to turn into alternate history channel.
Trifate alternate history?
I'm sure it would be a lot weirder, our alternate history.
It probably has. We'd be like, yeah, that makes sense, right? That's kind of how things work, and it'll just be completely wrong.
Yeah, probably. But let's jump right into it, guys. Here we go.
It's not often that territories are kicked out of countries. Most
That is
nations
true.
will often go to great lengths to make sure that they keep hold of as much land and as many people as humanly possible. Yet in 1965, this very thing happened to Singapore when it was ejected from Malaysia.
Why did
Given
they
how
want
rare
'em?
willingly losing a bit of land is throughout human history, the obvious question is, why? Why was Singapore, such a
Why?
geographically important
Why?
region, kicked out of Malaysia? So, after the Second World War, Southeast Asia was in a place of flux, and many of the area's imperial powers were struggling to reassert their authority there. This was because throughout the war, these areas had been occupied by Japan, and the Japanese had made sure to place them under the control of the native people. And at the end of the war, the Europeans returned and had wanted everything to go back to normal, but fun fact, no. One example is Britain. As of 1948, Britain's Southeast Asian colonies were the Federation of Malaya, Singapore, Sarawak, Brunei and North Borneo. Despite Britain's
Oh,
best
so they
efforts though,
separated
by
it.
September
Interesting.
1963, all of these colonies barring Brunei were independent. And all of these independent states opted to join the brand new Malaysia in the same year. For some, it was fear of communist takeover that pushed them into union, and for
Oh my gosh, was that Mao?
Is that a secret Mao?
Mao's hiding in the jungles of Malaysia? Because I don't know
This
if
is
you
new
knew
information.
this. I don't know if you knew this or not, but we've been to Malaysia and we've been to Singapore. If you want to check out our vlogs on our travel vlog channel, Trifate Lifestyle, you can check out the link in the description below and go check out our vlogs.
Malaysia is one of our most visited countries. There's lots of content on there.
Yeah, I mean, we went to Kuala, we went to Sabah, we've actually went to
Johor.
Johor, Genting Highlands. We've actually been to like some of the places twice.
Yeah.
We love Malaysia. We love Malaysia. It's cool. Well, hopefully we'll be back sometime soon. We got to check out the Merdeka. The dang Merdeka.
and for
We want to go to
Singapore,
the top.
I want to see. We called it when we were there the first time. We called it the Geometric Building because we didn't know it had a
Yes.
name,
And
Which I
because it's
think-
very geometric, it looks like a lot of different like polygons.
which I think is a cooler name in general than Merdeka.
sure.
So change it to Geometric Building, please.
it was about giving it access to larger markets to increase its wealth. And also, Malaysia wasn't Britain, which seemed like a step in the right direction for Singapore. Yet, a mere 2 years after joining Malaysia, Singapore was out. But why? Well, the reason was primarily political. Malaysian politics at this time was dominated by the Malaysian Solidarity Convention, a coalition of right-wing parties led by Tunku Abdul Rahman that represented Malaysia's largest ethnic groups, whereas Singaporean politics was monopolised by the People's Action Party, which was a more centrist multi-ethnic party headed by Lee Kuan Yew. Now, both sides
Interesting.
had rushed into this union because fear of communism, and both immediately ran into major issues. The first was that Malaysia operated on a system called Malaysian Malaysia, which discriminated against those who weren't ethnically Malaysian. The second was that the
Of
central
course,
government based in Kuala
racism.
Lumpur was sure to clamp down on any idea of Singapore maintaining any real autonomy because it was afraid that Singapore would become the nation's heart. As such, the PAP, despite promising not to, opted to run in the 1964 federal election against the MSC. Now, the PAP was crushed, but the fact that it ran on a platform of ending racial discrimination worried the MSC. The reason being that about 30 to 35% of Malaysia's population was ethnically Chinese, and this voting bloc could have kept the MSC out of power. In fact, the only reason why most Chinese Malaysians voted for the MSC was the threat that any attempt to rewrite the system in place would lead to the government joining Indonesia to keep the Chinese out of power forever. As such, Rahman came up with a brilliant idea. Let's just kick Singapore out. Tensions continued to rise and culminated in a series of race riots in Singapore whose population was overwhelmingly Chinese. You should know, though, that this wasn't some quick unilateral decision and there were many months of discussions between both sides. Most Singaporean leaders wished to remain a part of Malaysia, but some, like Goh Keng Swee, wanted to have a much looser agreement. The Malaysian government said no, and so Swee pushed for Singapore to leave Malaysia altogether. The deadlock continued and tensions rose further, and so Rahman went to the Malaysian parliament and pushed for a vote on simply expelling Singapore, which he won unanimously. On August 9, 1965, the Singaporean representatives reluctantly declared independence, and thereafter Singapore would be an independent nation, one which then became incredibly wealthy, so it sort of worked out in the end.
Yeah, it worked out for Singapore. They're very rich, and it's a very nice country now, but it's interesting.
A lot of that could be from the fact that it's a city-state in that location.
Yeah, I mean, they got a nice little spot on the strait right there, so they can bring in those taxes. Heck yeah, bring in those shipping tariffs.
So interesting to see like the policies of Malaysia back then. I mean, who knows what it's even like now, but just for how surprisingly diverse Malaysia is, for that to be like the platform that started after World War II.
What's up with humans and being racist?
Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?
It's interesting. That's so many things like throughout world history, especially like against different ethnic groups in different countries, especially countries that have like a lot of different or countries that like just have a lot of different types of people living in them. Racism just always happens, and the majority always discriminates against the minority in some way or another. Or in some countries, like in South America, the minority discriminates against the majority because they have all the power.
Yeah, the powerful just discriminates against the less powerful.
It's interesting that that's just how humans are. Why can't we? Let's just sing it again. Why can't we? It's a dangerous song. Why can't we be friends? Thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you want to check out our travel vlogs in Malaysia and Singapore, check out the description below for the link to that channel. It's pretty sick.
Tri-Fate lifestyle.
See you in the next one. Tri-Fate out.